have you ever felt it? That quiet, crawling dread that starts as a whisper in the back of your mind but grows louder with every passing day? The kind of feeling that makes your stomach twist, that keeps you up at night staring at the ceiling, unable to shake the thought that something is wrong, even when you have no proof. That's where I am now. I watch Daniel the way a drowning person watches the surface of the water, desperate, terrified, searching for something that isn't there anymore. The man who used to pull me into his arms the second he walked through the door now barely glances up from his phone when I say his name. The man who once traced lazy circles on my skin as we lay in bed now sleeps with his back to me, his body a wall between us. I tell myself I'm imagining things. That work has been stressful for him, that people change, that love simply evolves. But then I hear the way he laughs when he's texting, an easy, breathless chuckle I haven't pulled from him in months. I see the way he tilts his phone away when I walk by, the way he suddenly cares about how he looks before he leaves the house. Little things. Insignificant things. At least, that's what I try to believe. But the truth is, I already know. I can feel it in my bones, in my gut, in the space between us that grows wider every day. Something is happening. Something is breaking. And I think it might be me. They say betrayal doesn't happen all at once. It starts with tiny cracks, barely noticeable at first. A late-night text. A lingering glance. A shift in the way someone says your name, as if the weight of it has changed on their tongue. I started noticing the cracks weeks ago, but I told myself I was imagining them. That I was being insecure, needy, irrational. But then came the lies. Small, harmless ones at first. Sorry, babe, work ran late. Except I called his office once, and they said he left at 6. Just a work friend. Except I saw the way his eyes flickered, the way his fingers tightened around his glass when I asked who she was. The lies started stacking up like fragile glass, and I was too afraid to touch them, too afraid to shatter the illusion that everything was fine. But last night, something changed. Last night, the cracks became too wide to ignore. Daniel came home smelling like perfume, one that wasn't mine. I didn't say anything at first. I just watched as he peeled off his jacket, loosened his tie, and avoided my gaze. He kissed me absent-mindedly on the forehead, the way someone pets a dog, before walking away. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom and asked, "Where were you tonight?" He didn't even hesitate. "I told you, late meeting at the firm." The lie was smooth, effortless, as if he had rehearsed it. But his shirt was wrinkled in a way that suggested hands, not his, had grabbed at the fabric. His wedding ring, always so firmly in place, was missing. And that was when I knew. Not just the suspicion, not just the dread, but the truth of it. I am being betrayed. I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing myself to smile, forcing my voice to stay light. "You left your ring at work?" His hand twitched, just slightly, but I saw it. He glanced down at his bare finger, like he was surprised to see it, like he hadn't realized. "Yeah," he said too quickly. "Must have taken it off while typing." "Typing?" I nodded, stepping back into the shadows of our home. I didn't argue. I didn't press. Because I had already decided I wouldn't let him know I was onto him. Not yet. But I would find out the truth. And when I did, I would make sure he never saw it coming. A woman knows when she's being replaced. It's not just the lies, the late nights, the distant touch, it's the absence. The way his love evaporates, drop by drop, until one day you wake up next to a stranger wearing your husband's face. But I wasn't going to be the clueless wife, the pathetic woman who ignored the truth until it destroyed her. No, if Daniel was lying to me, I was going to catch him. I was going to make him say it out loud. So, I started watching him the way he used to watch me when we were first in love, closely, curiously, with a hunger to know every secret. Only this time, the hunger burned like acid. I checked his phone when he was in the shower. Nothing. He was careful, too careful. Deleted messages, cleared call logs. But no man covers his tracks perfectly. It was in his car that I found the first undeniable crack in his story. A receipt. A simple, crumpled piece of paper wedged between the seat and the center console. I almost didn't see it, but when I did, my hands trembled as I smoothed it out. 2 glasses of wine. 1 appetizer. 1 entree. Dinner for 2. The date, last night. The time, 8:47 p.m. The place, a restaurant across town, nowhere near his office. I stared at the paper until the ink blurred. A part of me had wanted to be wrong. A part of me had prayed I was overreacting, that this was all in my head. But the proof was in my hands, cold and undeniable. I sat there in his car, gripping the receipt so tightly my knuckles turned white. The world outside moved as if nothing had changed, but inside me, something was breaking apart. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I put the receipt back exactly where I found it. Because this wasn't over. Because if Daniel thought he was going to get away with this, he was wrong. Because I wasn't just going to confront him. I was going to catch him in the act. I had the proof. But proof wasn't enough, I wanted the moment. The raw, undeniable truth, the kind that couldn't be smoothed over with lies or excuses. I wanted to see his face when he realized he was caught. So I set the trap. That evening, I acted like nothing had changed. I kissed him on the cheek when he came home, asked about his day, even laughed at a story he told me about his coworker. I played the perfect wife, the clueless fool. And when he told me he had to work late again tomorrow, I smiled. I even told him not to stress too much. He bought it. Of course he did. The next night, I waited until he left, then I followed him. My hands were shaking on the wheel, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. But I didn't turn back. Not this time. He drove across town, not to his office, but to a quiet, upscale restaurant with dim lighting and candlelit tables. I parked a safe distance away, watching as he stepped out of his car, adjusted his tie, and walked inside. And then she appeared. A woman. Tall. Elegant. Dark hair cascading over her shoulders. She was waiting for him, her lips curling into a smile that I recognized all too well, the kind of smile I used to wear when I saw him. They hugged. Then he kissed her. Not on the cheek. Not like a friend. Like a lover. I sat frozen in my car, gripping the steering wheel, the air thick and suffocating around me. My lungs refused to work, my vision blurred, and for a moment, I felt like I was drowning. It wasn't suspicion anymore. It wasn't paranoia. It was real. Daniel, my Daniel, was in love with someone else. And he thought I didn't know. But he was about to find out just how wrong he was. I had imagined this moment 100 different ways. Maybe I would storm into the restaurant, slam the receipt onto the table, and watch the blood drain from his face. Maybe I would pour his expensive wine over his lap and walk away with my head held high. Maybe I would wait for him at home, sitting in the dark like a ghost, and let him lie to me one last time before I unraveled him with the truth. But nothing prepares you for the reality of betrayal. I sat in my car, hands trembling as I watched them through the restaurant's glowing windows. The woman, was laughing, tilting her head just enough to let her hair fall gracefully over her shoulder. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing over his hand, lingering. And Daniel? He didn't pull away. He didn't even hesitate. He looked at her the way he used to look at me. A hollow, sick feeling crawled through my chest, burning its way down to my stomach. It wasn't just sex. It wasn't just a fling. It was intimacy. Affection. Familiarity. This wasn't the first time they had been here together. How long had I been living in a lie? How many times had he smiled at me, kissed me, told me he loved me, while secretly giving her the same stolen moments? I swallowed down the bitter taste rising in my throat and forced myself to breathe. I needed to be smart about this. I wasn't going to let my emotions turn me into some weeping, broken wife who begged for the truth. No. If Daniel thought he could rewrite our history behind my back, I was going to make sure he paid for it. I grabbed my phone, opened the camera, and started recording. I filmed the way he leaned in, his elbow resting on the table, his fingers tracing slow, absent-minded circles on the back of her hand. I captured the way she bit her lip when he spoke, the way his eyes darkened in response. I even caught the moment he lifted his wine glass and toasted to something, a future with her, maybe. A future where I didn't exist. I let the camera roll as he reached across the table and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, as if she were something precious. I gripped the phone so tightly my fingers ached. That was mine. That touch. That tenderness. But not anymore. I exhaled slowly, steadying myself. Then, without thinking, I climbed out of my car. The cold night air slapped my skin, but I barely felt it. My heartbeat pounded in my ears as I walked toward the restaurant doors, my heels clicking against the pavement like the ticking of a bomb. I wasn't going to wait for fate to reveal the truth. I was going to deliver it myself. And I was going to enjoy watching his world burn. Every step I took toward that restaurant felt like stepping onto a frozen lake, dangerous, delicate, ready to crack beneath my feet at any second. I could still turn back. I could go home, swallow my humiliation, pretend I never saw anything. I could let Daniel keep his secret, let him continue sneaking out to her, let him keep coming home to me with lips that had kissed another woman. But no. I had spent weeks suffocating under suspicion, drowning in doubt, questioning my own instincts. Not anymore. Tonight, the truth was mine. I pushed open the restaurant doors, and warmth and laughter rushed over me. The scent of wine, expensive perfumes, slow-burning candles. A different world, a world where lovers whispered secrets over candlelight, where couples shared forks, hands, kisses. A world that was supposed to be mine. My heart thundered in my chest as I scanned the room. And then? There. Daniel. Sitting at a small, intimate table in the corner, bathed in soft golden light, looking so at ease, so utterly at home with her. She was laughing at something he said, her fingers resting lightly on her wine glass, head tilted just enough to seem effortlessly charming. She wasn't just some fling. This wasn't a meaningless mistake. She was a replacement. A new version of me. The realization hit so hard I almost lost my breath. But then Daniel lifted his hand, his wedding ringless hand, and brushed his thumb over the inside of her wrist, slow and intimate, like a man who had done it 100 times before. And suddenly, I wasn't frozen anymore. I was fire. I walked toward them, heart hammering, breath shallow. The sound of my heels against the polished wood floor was deafening in my own ears, but Daniel didn't hear it, he was too busy staring at her. He didn't see me until I was standing right beside their table. I let the silence stretch, let it breathe, let him feel the weight of me. Then, in a voice that was steady, eerily calm, I said, "Hello, Daniel." The sound of his name hit him like a gunshot. His whole body stiffened, his hand recoiling from hers like he had been burned. His head snapped toward me, and in the space of a heartbeat, I saw it all, the slow recognition, the horror, the fear. Good. For the first time in weeks, I had the power. "Emily," he breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman, his mistress, blinked in confusion, glancing between us. I could already see the panic setting in behind her eyes, the way her back straightened, the way her fingers tensed around the stem of her wine glass. She didn't know about me. Or maybe she did. Maybe she had known all along and simply didn't care. I turned my gaze to her, gave her the kind of smile I might have given a friend at brunch. "And you must be," I let the words trail off, inviting her to answer. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. She knew. Oh, she knew. I let my smile widen just slightly, my fingers tightening around the phone in my coat pocket. The recording was still open, still running. "I hate to interrupt," I continued, "but I just had to come say hi." Daniel swallowed hard, his face pale, his lips slightly parted like he was trying to come up with an excuse, a lie, anything to make this disappear. But there was no escape now. I wanted him to struggle. I wanted to watch him squirm, to watch the little perfect world he had built on deceit start to crumble in front of his eyes. I wanted to hear what he would say next. So I tilted my head, looking directly into his panicked, guilt-ridden face, and asked. "So, sweetheart, how was work?" Silence. Thick and suffocating, stretching across the table, filling the space between us. Daniel's mouth opened, then closed. His face was frozen in something between horror and disbelief, his mind scrambling for a way out, a way to explain this away, to twist the truth just enough to make me doubt myself. But there was no way out. Not this time. I let the silence breathe, let it settle into his bones, let him feel the full weight of what he had done. Then, I smiled. Not a broken, devastated smile, not the smile of a woman begging for answers, for apologies, for another chance. No. I smiled like a woman who had already won. "I won't take up much of your time," I said lightly, my voice steady, almost cheerful. "I just wanted to see it for myself. And now that I have," I exhaled, as if I had just set something heavy down. "I feel so much better." Daniel blinked. "Emily, I held up a hand. "No need," I said, tilting my head slightly. "Really, there's nothing left to say." I turned to her then, the woman who had taken what was mine. She was still gripping her wine glass, her fingers white at the knuckles, eyes darting between me and Daniel. I studied her, taking in the soft waves of her hair, the flawless skin, the perfectly manicured nails. "I wish you both all the best," I told her, meaning every word. "Really? You're going to need it." A flicker of something flashed across her face, shame? Regret? Or just fear that she'd fallen for a man who could lie so easily? It didn't matter. She wasn't my problem. Daniel inhaled sharply. "Emily, please, I can." I took a step back, sliding my phone from my pocket. "My lawyer will be in touch," I said simply. "Everything else is no longer my concern." His face went slack, the reality of my words finally sinking in. There was no screaming. No accusations. No dramatic scenes. Just a clean, quiet ending. Just me, walking away, head high, heart light. The weight of doubt, of betrayal, of him, gone. I stepped out into the night, breathing in the crisp air, feeling it fill my lungs like freedom. For the first time in a long, long time, I was finally walking toward my own future. A bright one. One that didn't have him in it.